to the show. Sorry, I am 3 minutes later than my normal start time of being 3 minutes late. That does not mean I'm 6 minutes late. No, that's not what that means, man. Because I start when I want to start. So there. Today is Indigenous allyship and everything Indigenous. Indigenous relations, Indigenous equity, diversity, inclusion, all that jazz. We're going to talk about it because I'm Indigenous. My name is Ian Hopfey. I'm an HR consultant, and you are watching Ian the HR Pro live podcast, where I'm dangerously unscripted. As I mentioned before, it's because I'm too lazy to write a script. My mind ruminates. I guarantee it, if you ever come on the show to talk about your business or to talk about your expertise related to one of the topics that I normally talk about, I'll try to be on time. I'll try to be scripted. I'll try really hard. No guarantees. Be ready for a you-know-what show. If you want to be on the show, click on the All My Links QR code in the top corner. That QR code takes you to my link tree, linktr.ee/Ian the HR Pro. So that'll allow you to book a discovery call, and we can talk about whether or not you want to be on the show. Or hey, if you're a client looking for HR support or Indigenous relations support, go ahead, use them links there too. That'll get you going. Also, the most important thing in that link is going to be the $7 ebook that helps businesses deal with staff drama in 5 days. And this is great for small to medium-sized businesses where you don't have an HR department or an HR person. Oh, sorry, I'm breathing heavy because I just ran up the stairs with my hot coffee and my container full of oranges and apples. So rush. Sorry. While I was down there, I had to put some garbage in the garbage. I had to clean up after myself. I had to boil the water. Oh, life stuff, right? Just when I think I'm going to be quick about something, everything goes right down the toilet. So anyway, someone's chatting already. What's going on here? Baby face. Okay, I got my haircut finally got the haircut. It's off my collar. It's not gonna bother me. You're not gonna watch me the whole show trying to mess with my hair. Oh, it looks ugly, it's popping out. There was always something for like the last 3 weeks. There was always something like poking out, and I was trying to put it down. Now it's good. Went to my local barber. What's the name of that barber shop I go to? Kazoo. New window. Let's look. Let's go to Google. Let's go to barbershop. Let's go to Google Maps. And it's that quick. I've tried to go to Tommy Gunn's near me. I didn't really enjoy it. Well, not my vibe. I've gone to Billy's Barbershop. That's right on 124th. I did like the work I got done on my hair, but it's just outside of my neighborhood. So I wanted to find a barber in my neighborhood. Here's my barber. Let me share it. You you're in Edmonton and you're downtown Edmonton in the Queen Mary Park area, just north of downtown, this is my barbershop. Right? We can zoom in a little bit. He's right on 107th Ave. See, 11321 107th Ave. They just put that new, they just changed 113th into one-way south because they use part of the road as a great new amazing bike path going north, connecting 105th all the way up to basically Airway Park up here. So this is Allard Hall. This is University of MacEwan University. So that bike path goes all the way up 113th, right past my barber shop, and then goes past 111th, and then goes right up into Airway Park here. And actually, they made a connection from the neighborhood to Kingsway. So you can actually get quite far with that bike path, and that's pretty awesome. I love the bike infrastructure. But anyway, his Kel Barbershop. I know, I go there. It's a great shop. They always do a good job for me. I went went Monday afternoon after my live. It was about 2 or 3 yesterday. And, 4.6 out of 94 reviews. Can't complain. Here's my review from 2 years ago. Great haircut. I walked in and it took me right away. This was Monday at 1:30 p.m. Okay. I like getting a haircut on Mondays. I guess that's my thing. $21 plus tip. I mean, I got the same job haircut today, and that's good. It's good stuff, man. I'm gonna unshare that. Get me back full. Basically got the same haircut. I used to have really long hair, but even when I had... Whoa, what's going on? Babyface. At least you're not in the toilet. Oh, shit. Joy, that was Monday. I had issues yesterday morning, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna make it. No, this was last Friday. I actually had to pause the show at least once, put on the Be Right Back sign, and I had to run to the washroom. Friday morning was terrible for me. My stomach is so sensitive now to meat or anything that it doesn't like, obviously. I'm lactose intolerant. Kazoo, you trying to call that fairy guy on Flintstone? Kazoo? No, that's the name of my Hezkel. Hizkel. It's not Kazoo. I didn't say Kazoo. This ain't the Flintstones, man. He's not a fairy guy, Joy. Kazoo was a little alien from the future who was helping Fred. So there. And you don't even ride a bike. You shut up your face. Riding a bike is easy. You never forget. You always fall off, right? So, I would call myself an urbanist. We need more density. So the only way we can do that without overwhelming ourselves with cars downtown Edmonton is by having more walking, more bike paths, and better transit. Right? That's it. So imagine turning that whole 107th, instead of like a through road that's designed just for traffic to go through, well, why have all them stores along 107th if the traffic is just going by? I guarantee you business would get better if they shut down 2 lanes on either side of the road, turned it into just one way, either way, and put a bike lane on each side and made the sidewalks nice and wide for walking, and allowed the businesses to kind of use part of that sidewalk during the summer for their bars or whatever, right? that slows traffic down. So instead of turning it to just get through here, get to work as fast as I can, it turns it into a destination where people slow down, more people shop, right? Sorry, you put all these places that are like great shopping streets. We look at 124th north-south on the north side here. You look at 107 east-west. It connects to 124th. You look at Jasper Ave east-west. You look at White Ave east-west. You know, these are just top of my head things that I can think of right now. 118th Ave east-west, right? Slow down that traffic. Get the bikes there. Too often we're creating bike lanes where nobody wants to go, man. If you ride a bike and you don't own a car, you are using your bike to go to work and to go shopping, right? These are your primary things you're using your bike for. Not to just drive around. Bikes, in order for them to become essential in a big city, especially a northern big city like Edmonton, the infrastructure has to be there. It has to take me where I want to go. I don't own a bike just to go on a stroll. I own a bike in the city to go get groceries, right? And the infrastructure has to take me to the right place. I think about the industrial areas in the city. Man, I went for a job interview once, and their office was located in an industrial area. I kid you not, it took me an hour and a half to get there, when if I had the vehicle to go that day, it would have taken me 10 minutes max. But no, I had to wait on these stupid buses that only come every half hour, and then they weave around the city like some crazy snake, right? Why isn't there better bus service to the industrial area where people work? I mean, if people work there, then there should be good transit to get there. And again, a good bike lane to get you to work. I mean, I don't know how many like construction workers or factory workers are going to be riding their bike to work, but I mean, it could happen. Might be better, might be faster than taking the bus, taking the transit, right? So, yeah, okay. Now you got me on it, Joy. Today was supposed to be Indigenous relations. Well, we think about urbanism relating to Indigenous relations. Last I heard, there was something like 3,000 houseless people living on the streets of Edmonton. And the data I got, the information I got, was that about 500 of these people at that time, so it's probably 5-year-old data. 500 of these people were Indigenous from my tribe, from my nation. 500 of these people were from the Big Stone Cree Nation. Our reserve is up north, but this is the big city. And I don't know if 500 of these 3,000 people were my people. So distant relatives or close relatives, right? Why isn't more being done for them? Yeah, my sister talks about transit when she worked at an industrial area in Calgary. It took her 2 hours to get to work. That's insane. So if you did a full 8, that means you were doing 12-hour days, right? And for 4 hours, you weren't getting paid. I mean, if you're an ethical employer and you know your employees have to take this lousy bus to work, the least you can do is give them a bus ticket credit every month. So they go purchase their monthly bus pass, they show the receipt at work, and they get a credit on their next pay, right? They get that money back. I mean, that's the least you can do. Buses were every hour except in the early morning, which was every 20 minutes then in that area after I got off the train. Crazy. I mean, that's just insane. You have like most of Europe where trains are coming every 3 to 6 minutes. Like, why can't that be done? There's like 1.5 million people living in and around Edmonton right now. 3 to 6 minutes for transit, man. You know how many people would actually start taking the buses and the trains if they were more reliable? How many vehicles we could get off the road? I don't, my wife, she's like, I would take the bus to work. You wouldn't have to drive me every day. But none of the buses take her directly to work. I mean, it would take her like 3 buses to get to work from downtown when I can get her there in 9 minutes. Right? And it would still take her half hour, 45 minutes. Like, it's insane. And the kind of the easiest thing for her to do would be to take the bus from here all the way down to the stadium, hit the train, then take the train back downtown to, I think it's like a block and a half from her work, right? Like, yeah, back then, bus pass in Calgary was $30 a month. I think it's something like that. I think it's a lot more now. It's been so long since we used the bus. I used to take the bus when I worked for the federal government, and I was coming from our neighborhood to the other side of downtown, and it took me 2 buses. One bus that went by our house got me downtown, and then I had to take another bus to get me just to the other side of downtown, and that bus was super slow, and sometimes I just walked, especially if I missed it in the morning. Oh, my sister says I love my truck. Well, no shit, everybody loves their truck, but you also live in a small town, country town. There is no transit. I mean, they have built in some bike walking paths, but you might get run over by a quad if you go there. You're a small town. You gotta use it. You gotta have a vehicle. That's just the way it is. Small towns just don't have the transit. They could. Cheaper option than transit would be to create more bike lanes, especially just in the town proper. If they had lots of bike lanes, then at least the people who live in the small town could easily bike and without getting run over. Especially these small towns where the highway runs right down the middle, right? That's why a lot of towns, they build a bypass. But that ends up killing the town sometimes, right? All of a sudden, the town depends on traffic running through the community. And that's not always good. So anyway, same thing with the big city. More walking paths, more bike routes, better, faster transit. I mean, every major transit line should be 3 to 6 minutes for the next bus. I mean, during the busy time, that might be 2 to 4 minutes, right? Like get them buses out there, get us moving, and use the LRT where possible, right? Anytime there's an LRT stop, like within half a kilometer, every bus, every bike route, every walking path should lead to the LRT. The LRT station and the mixed use zoning around that LRT station should be a destination, right? Not just a stop on the line. Turn it into a destination. The locals are going there. People from around the city will get there easier on transit, stuff like that. Anyway, so Indigenous people living on the streets, it's pretty sad. I know that a lot of times if we see a tent set up in our dog park here, it's a good chance it's an Indigenous person. We are leaving entire parts of our society to try to survive with the old ways. I mean, most Indigenous people, they probably know how to set up a camp and how to survive in the cold. It just, I don't know, when you lived a more traditional life, you kind of did this stuff. I lucked out. My dad did like camping and hunting and things like that, so I did go with him a little bit, even though he was white, right? So I see Indigenous people, and there's nothing I can do. Me personally, there's nothing I can do. My neighbors would be so upset if I opened up my backyard and said, yeah, come live in my backyard. I would be upset because I'm an introvert and I hate having people around. But there's a big sag and crease in my eye, making me look old. Anyway, so what do we do? In Canada, if you are thinking about Indigenous reconciliation, and this is something that every organization across Canada needs to be thinking about, how do they do their part with Indigenous reconciliation? And usually you don't know what to do. You're thinking, oh, they want me to donate to something. Well, no, as a small business owner, you don't need to donate your money. You're not making enough money to donate, right? I would consider hiring Indigenous people based on the Indigenous local population, percentage-wise. This is what we're talking about. Across Canada, Indigenous people represent about 5% of Canadians. So if you have any sort of size of workforce, you should have at least 5% Indigenous people working for you. That's the bare minimum. So if you have less than 100 people, just make sure you have one Indigenous person working for you, right? Or a Métis person, or Inuit people person, right? Like someone who is willing to identify as Indigenous, right? You want to, that's kind of like the simplest thing a business can do. Hire an Indigenous person. And don't worry if you're under 100 employees and you can't find one, that's fine. But certainly be thinking about that every time you go to hire someone new. Now, the good thing about being a private business, as long as you're not government or have some sort of union organized to represent your workers, you can hire whoever the hell you want, right? You don't have to follow a standard hiring process that a unionized organization would have set up and said, you can only hire this type of people, or this is the process to guarantee good workers. And, and with the government, it all has to be all transparent and fair. So they have to follow these more strict rules on how they hire and how they advertise jobs. Now, are they following the rules totally? There's always ways to sneak around them. But as a private business, a private organization, you can hire whoever the heck you want, man. So how do you find an Indigenous person to hire? Well, it takes a little bit of work. Maybe you don't know any Indigenous people. Maybe you just want to connect with some Indigenous people on social media and find out where the local Indigenous people hang out. right? Look for local Indigenous organizations, connect with them and say, hey, I want to put up a job ad poster at your location. Or can you share this with your members? Here's, through email, right? Oh, all of a sudden my head's itchy. Oh. Sorry. Anyway, so you want to connect with, it takes a little bit of work, but yeah, it's going to pay off. And you're going to say, I want to hire somebody of Indigenous descent, right? And you just send in a poster and then you'll start getting some resumes from Indigenous people. This goes for any sort of EDI, DEI, however you want to say it, equity, diversity, and inclusion. If you want to be a proper ally to people of color, whoever they may be, you advertise your job where they are located, right? Cultural groups, New Canadian type groups, these are where you're going to send your job posters. You're going to go physically put it up, or you're going to send it to an email and ask them to distribute it amongst their members, whatever, right? And that goes for any cultural group. If your business is operated here in my community, Queen Mary Park in downtown Edmonton, we're just north of downtown, you really should be trying to hire a Somali person into your organization, because here in Queen Mary Park, basically the second language is Somali after English, because there's a very high Somali population here, new Canadians coming and they're living here, and they tend to only stay in this community for a short time until they establish themselves and they go live somewhere else. So there's kind of a high turnover. So there's always new fresh faces showing up that you can hire, right? So connect with those groups that represent the Somali population here. And that's, you just think about the cultural groups. A lot of times you can identify demographics in your area, in your community. The city might have information about the demographics in your community. Stats Canada has amazing information, but there's just so much. It can be daunting and takes you a little bit to understand how the system works. Oh, excuse me. Because you got to sort through that data, and they have a lot of different ways to sort through the data, and it's just amazing. There's just so much data there. If you're a researcher, this is like research heaven, because there's just so much to sift through. So wherever you live, find out who the second population is and make sure you hire some of those people. And just Canada-wide, try to get 5% Indigenous people. If you have an office or you're located in a community where there's a higher percentage of Indigenous people, I think about my hometown, Indigenous people represent, 50 to 60% of the population, something like that. And the other 40% of the people there are married to an Indigenous person, right? So it's a very Indigenous community. So obviously you should be hiring as many Indigenous people as you can in that community. If you open up a new office or whatever, right? To start with, there may be a need for you to train new employees. So you're going to bring employees out and do training like always, but you're going to train up that staff to run that office, to run that location, and trying to make sure that it's a very high percentage of Indigenous people. And preferably, your new location manager should be Indigenous. in a situation like that where it's very high percentage of Indigenous people? Absolutely. Try to make sure you get a local that's promoted into the manager position for that location. So it's a lot of times employers just want to get lots of resumes so they get the best person, and they go throw the job ad up on something like Indeed. Like 50% of what you get off Indeed is going to be just crap. It's, I never forget the time I posted a financial job on there, and truck driver with no finance experience, 30 years of just long haul trucking, wants to apply for a finance job. Dude. Now, if you had told me for the last 5 years you were also working part-time for some sort of finance company or insurance sales or something like that, right? Then maybe we're going to consider you, but not cold like that. Like, that's just, you're going to get a lot of that through Indeed, and it's going to be hard for you to get a lot of resumes from just Indigenous people, right? So find that Native Friendship Center, find that local Indigenous nonprofit, whatever it might be, find that local Indigenous arts and crafts store, see if they got a poster or a poster board or something, or maybe you can connect with them, right? Like, you got to do a little bit of legwork. You got to do a little bit of legwork if you're thinking, I'm just going to put up a job ad and hope Indigenous people apply, right? But there's, when you're a business, there's other things you can do. And, I'm trying to avoid that you're just going to donate or you're going to sponsor something Indigenous to get your name out there, buy some high-priced advertising. I'm a member of CCIB, Canadian Council for Indigenous Business. I'm a member of that. I'm a certified Indigenous business as a member of that organization. I do pay a yearly fee to be a member, and they also accept non-Indigenous organizations, but they have to pay more. And the whole point of the organization is to help organizations become more Indigenous friendly, allyship. So they have a pair program, and that's partner something Indigenous relations or what, right? Basically it says you did the homework, you did the work to become an Indigenous friendly organization. And there's lots of organizations that are working through that. They have to pay a lot of money to do that, so it can be expensive. But they also have this monthly magazine that they create. And it's very professional looking magazine. My membership, once a year, I get included on that in their members section, and in the general business or consulting sections, all I get is my business name, LBH Business Services, and then my website, littlebluehouse.ca. That's all I get. That's what I get for my membership. But I'm seeing these massive organizations purchasing back cover, inside covers. These are like $5,000 purchases, and then full ads, half ads, business cards, quarter pages, right? Thank you, my friend Jonathan Gladue. Nice haircut. Thank you for noticing. Thank you. I know you have a secret crush on me. This is my buddy Johnny. Thank you for watching the show. He's probably done watching the show. He probably watched it for like 10 seconds and said, this guy's boring. And I'm just going to say nice haircut. What do you mean nice haircut? I always look like this. That's what I say to everybody. Anyway, thanks, Johnny. Thanks for the comment. Make the show look good. Yeah, joining. Oh, I'm on lunch break, just listening in. Stop being creepy, creeping out. And that's the purpose of this. And my intention was to do like a lunch and learn. Let's talk about HR on Mondays. Let's talk about Indigenous relations on Tuesday. Let's talk about side gigs, side hustles, and small business marketing on Wednesdays. Let's help everybody and talk about careers and resumes on Thursdays. And then Fridays, I'm just going to talk about everything and everything. Dungeons and Dragons, magic cards, or whatever. Coincidentally, Johnny, I'm trying to create a new green deck. I found a replacement for my giant worms. So you'll have to create a new deck or get a deck together and try to beat my new upgraded 60 card Magic the Gathering deck. It's going to be way faster. So there. Anyway, you join an organization like CCIB to start that journey, that reconciliation journey for your organization. And it's high price. It is. If you are a big organization, it's certainly green, man. It's always a green deck. Come on now. Oh, what color should you make? I don't care what color you make. But my deck is green. I love the green. Would you like to battle? Oh, them's fighting words, man. You know I always beat you. So Johnny always checks his new decks against mine because he knows my green deck can be quick. On the perfect hand, it can be quick. I could have those scaled worms out, which are expensive. I could have them out in 3 turns with the perfect hand. Otherwise, it's just a shit deck. But anyway, Indigenous relations is a big thing. Every organization in Canada should be thinking about this in one way or another. I am part of organizations where we say a land acknowledgement at the start of every meeting. And you've got to come up, even if you're a tiny little mom and pop store. What? I have a modern tier 1 deck Tron built. Tron built? Who's Tron? I don't know. I've got an ancient Ice Age deck that I built. Yeah. So every organization should be doing some sort of Indigenous reconciliation. And if you want to know what that's supposed to look like, look at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada 94 calls to action. 94 sounds insane. You're not dealing with 94. If you're a business, you're dealing with call to action number 92. Just look at that and concentrate on that. That's you and your small business doing the reconciliation. That's all you got to look at. Number 92. I'm burping. Sorry, I'm burping. So I hear so many stories of organizations where they say, oh, we hire everybody. And then strangely enough, they treat their Indigenous workers worse. Despite 20 years experience in the industry. People, friends, they tell me, oh, I don't know why They're treating me like shit. They offered me lower pay for my contract, and everyone else is making almost double for my contract. I hear these stories, and these are white-owned organizations. And are they doing it on purpose? Like, are they purposely just being racist while trying to put on a good show? I don't know. But when you have two employees doing the same job with similar experience, why is the Indigenous person making less per hour? That's bullshit. I advise my small business clients to create a pay grid immediately. As soon as you start hiring people, create a pay grid. The pay grid will keep you fair. Every employee will fit somewhere on that pay grid. So you have a pay grid for each job type. For admin assistants, here's your pay grid. Your laborers, here's your pay grid. Your accountants and bookkeepers, here's your pay grid, right? Every job has a pay grid. And one, this keeps you honest. You at least, if you're a racist bastard, right, you still got to keep your people in that pay grid. So you can't completely undercut somebody and pay them $2 an hour, right? They got to be in the pay grid. So if you're racist, you'll try to keep them at the bottom of the pay grid, but at least they're in a more fair pay grid, right? So it keeps you from being you might be a racist, but you're not an effing racist, right? That's the difference there with the pay grid. The other thing it does is that it allows you as the business owner to budget better. You have 3 people on this pay grid. You have 2 people on this pay grid. You have 10 people on this pay grid. Your budget for next year is the top end of that pay grid for each of those employees. So if you got 10 employees here on this pay grid, and they're all on different levels of the pay grid, different merit levels, they've been with you different lengths of time, you budget for these 10 people. Your budget says the top end of the pay grid for all these employees. So you got 10 employees making the maximum they can possibly make in that pay grid. That's your budget. There's going to be savings at the end of the year. Excellent. Nice bonus at the end of the year because not everybody got paid the full amount. But you were prepared. You were prepared in that, your business isn't going to go over because you've overhired and you didn't realize that everybody was higher on the pay. If you're trying to sort all them 10 people out and kind of gauge where they're going to be at the end of the year, that's a lot of work. Let's just say, here's the pay grid. You got 10 people in that pay grid someplace. You budget the high end. You budget the high end every time. And your business isn't going to go under due to labor costs because you budgeted for it. Right? And if you have people lower in the pay grid, that's just savings. At the end of December 31st, you're just like, we had an extra 30 grand we didn't spend on wages this year. That's great. Well, now you got an option. You can give them as bonuses. Oh, bonuses. Or give yourself a bonus, right? Or save it up. Thanks, Mom. Johnny said I look good too in my new haircut. He commented earlier, I'm listening, and you look so wonderful with that haircut. Love you, Nicosis. Thanks, Mommy. That's my mom. Where was I? It's just all about the haircut this show, right? Connie said new haircut. My sister insulted me by saying I got a baby face because of my new haircut. But my mom loves my haircut. Okay, that's great. Thank you. I went and got my 6-month haircut. The last time I saw my barber, I think was April or May. And I hadn't seen him since the year before. Again, probably this time of year. And as I left, he said, I'll see you next year. I showed up before the end of the year. In your face, Mr. Barber. So, and like I said, he's a local barber. He's right in the neighborhood. So it's nice. He is 1 block over from the pharmacy we go to, which is a local pharmacy in the neighborhood, right? Obviously, we're trying to support the local business as much as possible in the neighborhood. I mean, $21 haircut every 6 months. And no, I'm not exactly paying the rent, but it's good. Indigenous relations, right? That pay grid. The pay grid keeps you from being 100% racist, and that looks better. But it also keeps you in budget. So you just know you got this many employees. That's the target is for the year, whatnot. I mean, if you're a small business owner, make sure you as the owner are on one of the pay grids getting paid also. We got these small businesses that are just barely surviving, and the owner decides to retire or something like that, or wants to retire, but they can't, because as soon as they hire someone at a decent wage, the business starts losing money, because for the last 30 years they really weren't paying themselves much money. You know, you kind of Earl Grey tea, nice and cool now. You have these small mom and pop businesses that have like a grocery store, convenience store, some sort of store, and they live upstairs. I'm thinking Kim's Convenience from TV, right? Mr. Kim, Mrs. Kim, they live upstairs. Kids live with them. Now they're moving away. But can he retire from the store? You live in the store. And now you want to bring in a manager. Can you pay that person? Right? Essentially, the store has been paying your mortgage or your rent because you live upstairs. Right? So you got to get creative. A lot of times, small businesses, we start a small business for 2 reasons. One, we're just trying to create a job for ourselves, and we just want to run a small business. We enjoy what we do. We like what we do. 2, you want to build a business as fast as you can and sell it off. And sell it off means you sell it to a bigger company, or you take it public and you sell it to shareholders, right? And that's your big payday. That's where you make money. That sort of business is meant, 5 years or less type time frame. Let's build up this big business. They use a lot of investor money, and they just try to build as fast as they can. So when they sell the business, they can easily pay off all the investors and walk away with a good chunk of money. That's hard work, though, man. You're there. You're working. Your nose is almost gone because that grindstone, you're hitting it so hard, right? But with a small mom and pop business, you just want to get it to a spot where you can survive. What are you doing, cat? Jack, what's wrong? The cat might have had a bad poop, and now her bum hurts. I can't can't see her. I don't know. She's out in the hallway. I heard her in the litter box, and she meowed something terrible, like some banshee. Anyway, cat problems. So that mom and pop business, you just want to get it to a point where you are making steady income. You've essentially replaced your job income and maybe your spouse's job income, and that's fine. For the next 20, 30 years, that's all you want. You're not thinking you're going to sell out and make lots of money. I got to think of what I should talk about next. So we talked about Indigenous people and trying to hire them and trying to pay them fairly. So you want to make sure you got a pay grid. I mean, pay grids keep you from being accused of things too. You're paying Ray more money than you're paying me. You've got to come up with some sort of justification. Well, Ray's my childhood best friend, so I'm going to pay him more, right? Like, that's not a good answer. You got to put everyone on that pay grid. You got to create that pay grid that the business is going to be able to sustain. And then you have to be strategic about the next person you're hiring, right? If you think the business can handle another person without your budget going into red for the year, I always consider hire that person who's creating money for the business. So you're thinking someone who's servicing clients so they make money for the organization. Salespeople making sales for the organization. These are the client-facing type roles, as opposed to a new accountant, a new bookkeeper, even another HR person like me. You don't want to hire an HR person until you get to about 75 employees. At that point, your organization should be making enough money at the front end to cover the wages of an HR professional, and you're looking anywhere from $65,000 to $100,000 a year, starting, right, depending on the experience you want. So, pay grids keep you honest. Pay grids keep you in budget. You really want to look at the 94 calls to action if you're a business organization. Just give me a second here. I'll search for them and bring them up. I am under the whip again. Your loving sister wants Christmas earrings ASAP. Oh my, here we go. My mother makes traditional arts and crafts, moccasins, earrings, beaded brooches, whatnot. She's an expert in that. Dare I say, an elder in that skill. And my sister is like, get to work. Get to work. We got an order, or we need more stock for Christmas. Yeah. But that's Indigenous stuff. You want to go to their Facebook groups and go look at their amazing craft items that they've created. Go to all my links QR code and join their Facebook groups and make an order. Make an order for Christmas. Now it's probably a great time to do it, so that they have time to make it and or send it to you if they still have to make it. So yeah. My mom is going to associate my voice with her aching, sore fingers as she's beating and poking herself by accident. So yeah, thanks, Joy, my loving big sister, for making my mom associate my voice with hard work. Anyway, where's that document I want to bring up? Give me a moment. Documents. I think I got an Indigenous Relations folder. And what do we got? Here we go. Let's share this. We're going to share this screen. Oh, the share screen. Share this, man. I want to make myself bigger. There I am. Okay. So, I'm not whipping her. I made suggestions. With the sound of a whip. It's like phoning her up. Hey, Mom, we might need a bunch more Christmas stuff. And then she's like in the background. Yep. I know, that's psychological. You got to break away from her, Mom. Go start your own thing. Anyway, Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada calls to action. Right? Let's go through these. We're going to go through each of them one in detail. No, we're not. We're going to go over it real quick. Right? These came out in 2015. Or this document was created in 2015. And of course, the late great Murray Sinclair, Honorable Murray Sinclair, who was Indigenous, was the head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada on residential schools, right? So we start right off with child welfare and all the numbered points, and education. If you're in education, if you're in language and culture, if you're anything to do with language and culture, this is something you should be looking at. I need to look at that because I'm trying to create a website called sakowcree.ca for preserving our language from North Central Alberta. My mom is a fluent Sakow Cree speaker, and that's the official language of the Big Stone Cree Nation. So I should look at that section too. Anyway, if you're in healthcare, right? If you're in justice, Canadian governments and United Nations declarations of rights on the Indigenous people, right? Canada has accepted that. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act has been initiated in Canada, is now law. Look it up. Find out what that means for your organization. The Royal Proclamation and Covenant, the Royal Proclamation, I believe, was this is issued by the Crown, right? Like, look, there's a lot of neat tidbits in here. But we're still going at 50 equity for Aboriginal people in the legal system. We know Indigenous people account for an absurdly high percentage of people in the legal system because systemically the system is biased towards Indigenous people. And you see this in the United States between like a black person and a white person. The black person always gets a worse sentence, and half the time the white people get off, right? That's the systemic nature of racism. So, right, we keep going through professional development and training for public servants, right? Church apologies and reconciliation, education for reconciliation, right? We keep going through these youth programs, museums and archives, right? We know this is a big issue where museums basically stolen Indigenous artifacts, and we have a lot of big museums starting to give back these artifacts to the people. Missing children, National Center for Truth and media and reconciliation. So, sports and reconciliation here. This is the one we're talking about today. Business and reconciliation. This is call to action number 92. This is the one, if you're a small business owner, this is the one you need to be concentrating on. Oh, sorry. There's always something going on. I got post-nasal drip, aggravated by allergies, and it's probably genetic from my mom and my dad, because my mom was always having issues and always having to take the allergy pills. My dad's, I remember his nose was always running. He always had a hanky with him. Shout out in the comments if you still use a hanky and you keep it in your pocket. I mean, that's an old school thing, right? So, business and reconciliation, number 92. We call upon the corporate sector in Canada to adopt the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples as a reconciliation framework, and to apply its principles, norms, and standards to corporate policy and core operational activities involving Indigenous people and their lands and resources. This would include, but not be limited to, the following. So, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act is law in Canada. You need to read it. You need to use it. If you have any business in Canada, you at least have to be familiar with it. If you have a business that deals with natural resources, the oil, the gas, the mining, the logging, anything that's on the land. I mean, I spoke with a gentleman once who owns a hunting outfitter company, and he told me, yeah, I'm always trying to help Indigenous companies. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you need my services for Indigenous relations, because you take your rich U.S. clients out onto traditional territories to go hunting. Why aren't you using me as your service? I didn't tell him that. The conversation ended. And I'm like, how did I not make a sale? Like, it was really obvious that he needed some Indigenous relations support. The sale didn't happen. I mean, this was still early on in my consulting career, so maybe I just wasn't very good at sales. Anyway, so there's, aside from just adopting the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, also called the UNDRIP, there's 3 sections. 92I. Commit to meaningful consultation, building respectful relationships, and obtaining the free, prior, and informed consent of Indigenous peoples before proceeding with economic development projects. So, yeah, man, you're building a new building, whether it's in downtown or in a small town somewhere in Canada, you connect with the local friendship center and you put on an information session there for free for them, saying this is what we plan. And then you ask, does anyone have an elder that can come out and do a prayer or smudge or something to bless our project? I mean, easy, dude, easy. And the optics that you care. Of course, you're going to ask for feedback too. This is our project. Does anyone have any feedback on how we can do it more respectfully? This is easy stuff, man. Anyway, 92 II. Ensure that Aboriginal peoples have equitable access to jobs, training, and education opportunities in the corporate sector, and that Aboriginal communities gain long-term sustainable benefits from economic development projects. So that's why I talk about having at least 5% of your workforce as Indigenous people. And if you're working in an Indigenous community, you need to up that percentage. If 50% of the people in that community are Indigenous, 50% of your local employees need to be Indigenous. You're creating these long-term jobs for them. Now, maybe once a year you help sponsor a powwow or some local event happening at the local community hall. Not rocket science. It's pretty easy. All right. But you interpret these however you need to, and you do more. You always try to do more. But it doesn't have to be hard. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Call to action number 92, III. Provide education for management and staff on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history and legacy of residential schools, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, treaties and Aboriginal rights, Indigenous law, and Aboriginal Crown relations. This will require skills-based training in intercultural competencies, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism. This is me, man. This is what my business does. Because I do the Indigenous relations, the Indigenous allyship stuff, this is what I do. And we start this off by getting your management and employees to, burping now. We start this off by getting your management and staff to participate in the KAIROS blanket exercise that me and my wife host. The KAIROS blanket exercise is a 500-year history lesson of Indigenous relations in Canada. And the KAIROS blanket exercise hits all the major points about that, the treaties, the Métis Nation, the TB in the Inuit communities, missing and murdered women, the residential schools, the 60s scoop, right? All these things, they get covered as a base learning. I would say bring in the KAIROS blanket exercise once a year to your organization. People get refreshers, new employees get to see it. This is the base. This is the start of your personal and your organization's reconciliation journey, because it gives you the facts, the history. My sister just said, I think my business is 75% Indigenous. Okay. So if you're including my mom, she's 100%. If she's including herself, she's 50%. So that's 75% right there. But you got her daughters who also help out, and they're both quarter. So 100%, 50%, 2/4. That's too much math. This is not a math show. Go somewhere else if you want to talk math. Anyway, Indigenous family, blood quantum stuff. So, provide education. This is me. This is where I'm located. If you consult with me, I deal with this education portion. And right, everything I talk about is advice and is all geared towards businesses dealing with this 92 III, right? And I also help cover these things. I advise people on part 2 of this. And I can advise on this part 1, but it's up to you to make those commitments. And, we think about the things you can do. Start using land acknowledgements at all meetings. Hire at least 5% employees, more if you can, or 5% Indigenous employees, more in communities where there's a higher percentage, right? And I come in and I start doing the training for you, and after the KAIROS blanket exercise, I can do the allyship training afterwards and help your organization. So this is really where I come in. I mean, if you want to consult with me, all my links up here with the QR code takes you to my link tree, and I believe right down at the bottom it says Discovery Call. That's where you want to book a call with me. We'll get on a call and we will decide if you need me or not and what capacity you need me, right? This is what I do as an Indigenous person. It is very hard for me to go into an organization and realize that the Indigenous relations liaison person in the organization is not Indigenous. That's a hard situation. That's an easy gimme, right? You want an Indigenous liaison person in your organization? Make them Indigenous. That's an easy gimme. That's guaranteed. You're gonna have at least one Indigenous person in your organization, right? And absolutely, that should be the role that's filled with an Indigenous person. And it's not a reflection of the person that holds that job. Their skills and knowledge may well be there, and that is fine. But the optics, the perception of an organization that has not hired an Indigenous person into an obvious Indigenous role. I mean, that's terrible, man. Like, what are you doing? Anyway, I'm having some more Earl Grey before it's totally cold. She was only including her daughters Shay and Tanis. And Liz, her wife. Mom is 100% Wabasca Native Crafts. Okay, so she does have her own thing, but then my mom is the supplier for some of these products for my sister's company. So my mom is not only business to customer, she's also business to business, filling out orders for my sister's business. 2 separate businesses, she says, right? And if we look at my sister's business, she's 50%, her daughters are 25%, and Liz is not Indigenous, as far as I know. Correct me, I didn't think she was. So, still too much math. Go get your calculator. Actually, some of my favorite math questions were, you want to create a 500 gram product with 100 grams of this product and 100 grams of this product and 250 grams of this product and 50 grams of this product. How? Whatever. You get to 100 grams, but each of those product is worth a different amount. So you got to come up with the amounts for the amount of the product you get, and then you're able to come up with the full amount of what the actual mixed product should be. And that is a math question describing my sister's family. Earl Grey tea. I'm a little old Frenchman. I have very little French in me, so. But anyway, I was thinking more like Jean-Luc Picard. But it's not hot. I hate hot tea. Burn my face off. Yeah. So if you're any sort of business in Canada, you are looking at number 92. That's all you got to look at. Really. You handle this call to action number 92. Oh, I'm burping, sorry. That was a big one. I should have recorded it. Anyway. My mom's PR person. Oh, she's just an employee. No, she's not an employee. I don't know. You're not including her. She's not PR. She's your slave contractor. Yes, Liz is 100% white. Okay, that's fine. So, you're looking at this 92 calls to action. That's you. That's where you are located as any sort of standard business. If you are into childcare, education, of your nonprofit or something, you skim through here and look to see if any of these might apply to you. Also, there might be something different because of the historical issues that we had. There's certain industries that might need special attention, so be aware of that. Newcomers to Canada. Right, this was 92, and then 93, newcomers to Canada. Right. Yeah. Should replace. I swear or affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Oh, that changed, all right. Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of Canada, including treaties with Indigenous peoples, and fulfill my duties as a Canadian citizen. I love that, including treaties with Indigenous peoples. So, I have facilitated the KAIROS blanket exercise for some new Canadians, and they took their citizenship, they became a Canadian citizen, but nowhere in that process did they talk about Indigenous people and the treaties or anything like that. And their first real exposure to it, the history, the politics behind it, their first exposure was the KAIROS blanket exercise that their organization had ordered and paid for, right, for them. So it's kind of despicable that new Canadians don't understand the relationship, the true nature of Canada, right? And I've had these newcomers come up to me and tell me that this was the first time they heard about this. This was the first time they heard about what the real relationship should have been, should be, could have been, right? Their only experience with Indigenous people in Canada was seeing our houseless neighbors and, you know, the people who are asking for money at the corners, on the median, right? Some intersections will have 4 people in all directions, doing the panhandle, and or seeing an Indigenous person that has serious addiction issues and maybe lying on the street and on the sidewalk somewhere. Like, this was their only experience with Indigenous people. So they are seeing the extreme side of the situation and agreeing with racists that Indigenous people are just lazy drunks who don't have homes, right? They're not seeing the systemic damage of 500 years of colonialism. They're not seeing the amazing, rich cultures and languages that are so prevalent, right? They're not seeing the beauty of these Indigenous cultures. They're only seeing the effects of a colonial government. So I think every new Canadian, as part of their process, they should have to experience a KAIROS blanket exercise and understand the true nature of Canada. I'm going to unshare this. And I'm going to bring up another another image that I like to share. I've created this image. This is part of my allyship program. What is this? Okay. Put me up beside there. Change me over. There we go. So this is Canada. This is the true nature of Canada. All right, let's make it a little bit bigger so I can see more of it. So we start from the bottom. We have the landmass of Canada. We have the landmass which Indigenous people call Turtle Island. Turtle Island is all of North America, so United States, Mexico, and Canada combined. That's Turtle Island. So the landmass that houses Canada, right? The treaties are the base document of this country. Not the Constitution, not the Charter of Rights and Freedom, the treaties. The treaties are what makes the agreement that colonial governments and Indigenous governments can share the land together. Right? The treaties is the top law in Canada, not the Constitution. The Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedom technically are only the top law for the colonial governments, federal, provincial, and municipal governments combined as the colonial governments. That's their top law. That's their top law. Right, which we, because the system is flawed and wrong, we all follow this law like it is the main law of the land. It's not. The individual treaties are the main law of the land. So if you're thinking about disputes and lawsuits and things like that, you start with the treaty in your area. Right? The local treaty. So here we are, Treaty 6. Treaty 6 is the top law of Central Alberta. Then we come to the Constitution of Canada. Then we come to provincial laws. Then we come to municipal laws. Right? It's that order. It's not a different way. Treaties are the top law. treaties allow the sharing of the land, sharing of the territory. And this is because Indigenous people didn't see themselves as owners of the land. Traditionally, Indigenous people don't own the land. That's almost ridiculous to think anyone or anything could own something from nature, right? It was created from nature. It was created from the creator, whatever, however you want to say it. It's ours to use. It's ours to care for. It is not ours to own. So that's the spirit of the treaties. We will share the land with you as long as we can live together peacefully. The colonial governments didn't follow this. Absolutely didn't follow this. Right? And we can see that it's permeated into the whole Canadian culture. It's almost wiped away the fact that there was treaties and a larger, more important law of the land. There's a little squirrel. He's running around over here on the fence. Squirrel! But Canada, as we know it, is made up of two types of governments. Colonial governments, which have separated themselves into federal, provincial, and municipal governments, but they're one class of government. And the Indigenous governments. And each individual nation, Indigenous nation, is an Indigenous government with equal standing with the colonial governments. So my nation, the Big Stone Cree Nation, has equal standing with the federal government, the federal colonial government, and all its separated governments, however they wanted to set themselves up. Here we go. Spammer from Twitch. Thank you. Best viewers on streamboo.com. Remove the space. Thank you, Spammer on Twitch. Because, of course, I go live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter X. I'm not going to call it just X. I miss Twitter. Twitter was such an amazing name, clever name. X is perverted BS. Anyway, so thank you, Spammer McSpammerson. But we look at how Canada is really created. So Indigenous governments, yes, we've kind of sorted ourselves out into treaty area governments, but it's not the treaty territory that's really the government. Treaty territories is basically just an association of the local Indigenous nations trying to work together and trying to influence the government. But it's not technically a level of government for Indigenous nations. My nation, the Big Stone Cree Nation, my chief is in charge of our nation. Right? And so our chief is at the same equal level as the Prime Minister of Canada. They should be working together. That's the only place we technically should be communicating with the colonial governments, is at that federal level. And each one of our nations has that right to be connected at that level. So when you think about provincial and municipal politics, the local First Nation is a higher level of government than municipal governments. That's the towns, counties, cities. They're low. They're low when you talk about governments. Indigenous governments are here. Municipalities are here. Provincial governments are here. The federal government is here. This is the connecting point. This is where Indigenous nations connect with the colonial governments. They technically do not connect at all with the lower level of the municipal governments or the provincial governments that the colonial government has decided to separate itself into. But it's all one government. The government, the federal colonial government, they call themselves Canada, but they're only 50% of Canada. The other 50% of Canada is all the Indigenous nations. That's why Canada's on top. Canada is combining these two groups of people, actually more like these 500 groups of people. The colonial government is one, and then all the First Nations across the country are all part of that Canada, because the treaty said so. And so that's the true nature of Canada. And of course, the Canadian government isn't ever going to acknowledge this. Certainly a provincial government and a municipal government aren't going to acknowledge this either. Anyway, let's unshare that. Stop sharing the screen. All right, so I'm done sharing the screen. If you need to get a hold of me for Indigenous relations stuff, or if you'd like to book a KAIROS blanket exercise for your organization, we need 20 to 50 people to have a successful KAIROS blanket exercise. Absolutely. Connect with me with my links on all my links up here in the QR code in the top right hand corner, which takes you to my link tree, and you can get all the links there. linktr.ee/EInTheHRPro. That's where you want to go. All the good stuff is there. And I think we're done, man. I will talk to you tomorrow when we're going to talk about side gigs, side hustles, and small business marketing once again. All right. I love you all. Goodbye. Let's see if this works today. Yesterday it acted weird. I don't know.